Knuckles Knockout Special. The story starts with Knuckles gazing to the stars, waiting for his people to return, until the Omnivore warps the Chaotix over to him. And he says it's good to see them again, even though the last time he did, they fought and then decided to call truce against a common enemy. So someone who spent his life alone should be way less trusting of his former enemies than this, rather than having a forced friendship with them right away because video game. I mean, at least with Penders, he was already longtime friends with Mighty by the time that we were introduced to him, and same goes with Vector. Why is it that he only acts untrusting of Sonic? Okay, at least it's Fleetwing Sonic, so I can understand him getting a bad vibe from him, but still. Espio explains that Fang was taken by the Chaotix to a prison hospital after last time when he was hit by laser, and he escaped 3 weeks ago, and they've been on his trail ever since. Vector says that Fang has bought a treasure map for the Lost Pyramid of Sandopolis, like we already know from earlier issues. You know, all he's been shown to care about is money. Although he's probably going to go after Sonic and Knuckles for the reward money, so yeah, it's got to be stopped, but if it weren't for that, I'd say they were only justified in going after him for revenge. It's not like he's planning to take over the world or destroy it. Mighty says that since Knuckles owns the floating island, they need his permission to track Fang down there. They warp to Sandopolis where the pyramid is already up and Fang's vehicle is there, which is how Fang got through the island's protective force field that still lets some robots in anyways earlier on. Didn't Knuckles say that he wishes that the force field was repaired? And now the force field is back? Vector reveals that in this comic, Fang's a scientific genius in technical things. That's weird. I imagine him to just be a gun-toting criminal, like Fleabite, not someone that educated. I guess it's a refreshing take on his character that explains how he has that kind of flying vehicle. But I'd rather the refreshing takes be on the world as a whole than on characters I expect to be consistent across the franchise. Knuckles is a good idea in Circuit for me when the ghosts show up because he says he forgot all about them. The ghost can only intangibly put its hand through Espio's chest harmlessly, so they run away and find Fang, with Charmy saying that he had misread his name as Mac and not Knack earlier. Considering that they were talking about Fang's escape from prison and stuff, he shouldn't have made that mistake unless he's really bad at remembering things from brain damage. Wasn't Fang part of the Chaotix for a while? Wouldn't he never forget his name? Fang naturally doesn't want to go back with people he hates and finish serving his time in prison. After some precious comic space is wasted, Knuckles reminds everyone that when he left the pyramid before, it was flooded with sand and the treasure room was filled with stuff. Fang doesn't explain what happened to all that sand right away, shows some of the treasure, which also doesn't explain anything, since as Knuckles puts it, "Come off it, Weasel, some of the items were as tall as this room." I guess he's called him by his species name as a slur. Vector then sees Fang hit the thing he was keeping the treasure in with a shrink ray, which explains how he fit all the treasure in there, as well as how he shrunk all that sand. So I hope for his sake that he can unshrink the treasure, because he'd make more money from them that way. In fact, if he increased their size, he would make a lot more money. Oh good, he says right away that he'll do that once he gets back to his hideout. Then he tells them that the guardian of the treasure chamber, a golem mech that's been out of commission for centuries, was reprogrammed to work for Fang against the heroes. And he tells it to destroy them all. First off, it wasn't out of it for centuries because we saw it try to attack Sonic before. And second, this alternate universe version of Fang is certainly more competent this way. I guess I'd feel better if he was wearing a lab coat instead of his design pretending that he's normal Fang when he's clearly not. Charmy is nice enough to compliment Fang on knowing all the tricks of the trade, and Mighty tells him to shut up because of it. I guess he complimented him from force of habit because he used to be his friend. This alternate universe version of Mighty is certainly meaner than the nice guy from Archie. I guess it makes sense, he has super strength, so he'd be the tough guy who doesn't want to look weak. But he's so short-tempered here. Then Fang is smart once again because he decides to just leave his shrinking device behind rather than risk his neck going back for in the heat of battle, because he can always make another. Oh gee, I wonder if the heroes are gonna use that device on the Golem! He was still being smart by trying to keep himself from being attacked by the Chaotix or the Golem, though. But yeah, Mighty holds it still and Knuckles shrinks it. That was creative. And I don't know if I'm being sarcastic with that or not. we don't really see shrink rays being used very often. Knuckles says that this little guy won't be giving us any more trouble, and Mighty says a charming joke, "I don't know, he could give you a nasty nip." They run out of the pyramid, not being inconvenienced by the ghost, and see Fang leaving in his flying vehicle that smartly has a glass dome over it to protect his head. Charming says they can still fly after them, only to be called useless by Mighty. It's so weird to see Mighty being such an asshole. Knuckles says that he thinks the shrink ray, out of nowhere, is designed to restore objects to their correct size. So Knuckles hits Fang's vehicle with a shrink ray, and for some strange reason, the treasures regrow, bursting out of it before the vehicle can shrink itself. Then Mighty catches him from the fall and lampshades how a jerk like him wouldn't be expected to bother doing that. The Chaotix plan to put him back behind bars with the Omniviewer, and the story ends with Knuckles having to pick up all the treasure. Wait, if the Omniviewer can teleport to wherever he wants, why didn't he just teleport to Fang himself? Well, I guess he didn't know where exactly Fang was, but couldn't he just keep on teleporting all over the universe until eventually he would find him through trial and error? In the next story, I'm really surprised that in a special dedicated to the Chaotix, they still didn't bother to have a story that takes up the entire issue. That really goes to show you how forced basic they insist on keeping the plots for the little kiddies. Anyways, we see an egg robo whose internal power supply is nearly exhausted. Wait, the power supply of a person inside a badnik can run out? That's dark. He can't be running on regular batteries or else the person wouldn't be compatible with him as a battery. He kidnaps a kid from the village of the Emerald Hill folk as they think about how useless the force field of the island is that the robot could get here so easily. You'd think that if all the robots on the island were there from being left behind after the force field showed up, Knuckles would have found and destroyed them all by now. Also, a robot finds the village of the Emerald Hill folk just like that. This is the equivalent to a robot randomly stumbling into Knothole and no big deal is made out of it. A villager decides to call Knuckles, and minutes later, Knuckles is on the Badnik's trail heading to Lava Reef Zone. He wonders if he can catch it off guard, but stupidly doesn't punch it as he dives at it as the first thing he does, but instead just harmlessly runs up to it so that the robot could punch him away. He dodges some fire from it, and then stupidly stands around talking to it some more, dodging a punch when he should just be spending every second he has attacking it, like normal violent hothead he's supposed to be. Because padding. They gotta extend a story that's just about one badnik being fought, or it won't be long enough for an overly basic story. He attacks the badnik until it sets itself on fire and explodes, without the kid in it. Knuckles then learns that the kid was actually home, but then a narrative cheat happens. As in direct contradiction with what we saw at the start of the story, I'm expected to believe he woke up before it tried to grab him and hid in his closet, and it was ages before he was brave enough to come out when he should have known from the screams that people were worried about him as they'd be calling his name. This plot is dumb! You'd think the robot would know it hasn't gotten a battery source. So wait, is that why its fighting was so pathetic and eventually overheated and blew up? Is that what typically happens to egg robos when they're running out of power? There was no indication that the kid woke up as he was being approached by a robot that could clearly see him and hid in the closet, and that the robot wouldn't just go into the closet after him. What a waste of comic space! It doesn't even bother to explain that the kid maybe hid a dummy of himself that he had for emergencies and the robot was fooled by it. Not to mention, the robot found not Knothole. You'd think that would have consequences. I wonder if the comic is forced by executives or something to not make stories last an entire issue by themselves, and this padding was the result. Well, I think I summarized that story well enough. Knuckles fights a badnik without anyone in it apparently. The end. It's weird how Knothole, the village of the Emerald Hill folk is actually better hidden than Knothole in the sense that with this universe, it could be anywhere. Like, the Emerald Hill people could be hiding anywhere. So, of course, he wouldn't find them. But with Knothole, like, Eggman has to know that it's somewhere in the Great Forest. So you'd think that he would have found it eventually. It's not like he has absolutely no idea where on the entire planet it could be. He knows it's in the Great Forest. The real story was at the start, with both being by Nigel Kitchen. It was interesting to see that this alternate universe version of Fang's a genius who built a shrink ray to deal with the pyramid sand and put the treasure in a container to transport it. He also technically made a smart move by avoiding going into the fight to get his shrink ray back. The minute he forgot to leave with it though, he doomed himself because the heroes predictably beat the invincible golem by shrinking it, and then Knuckles somehow doesn't shrink the vehicle he was in by hitting it with the shrink ray, but instead the shrink ray affects things that are inside it when the ray only hit the outside of the vehicle. Logically, the vehicle should have struck with Fang in it and crushed him to death, making this the first of multiple times where I'd expect Fang to have been killed, but he wasn't. The last time being when he was hit by a laser and the robot said target eliminated. And now, he should have been crushed to death. I guess the ray's influence can extend to a great deal inside the object it hits, or otherwise it would just destroy objects by shrinking the outside without shrinking the inside. But that still didn't make any sense. It should have shrank the vehicle and made the treasure grow out of it. And it would have been fine for Mighty to not catch Fang. He could have been injured as more karma and been less able to escape prison. The story was fun, but it should have been longer from having more stuff happening in it, as I expected it to last the whole issue, since, you know, it's a special, and that's how it works at Archie most of the time.